You are listening
You are listening
You're listening to
to Not
Not Elsewhere.
Not Elsewhere.
Elsewhere
Classified.
Welcome everybody to the 100th episode, guys. To the 100th episode. Oh, did it just fall down? Look at that. Anyways, 100th episode. 100th episode of the Not Elsewhere Classified podcast. Also, this is the fourth year, because remember when we did this when we did the recording, it was somewhere in like June or July, I think. Well, we recorded in June and I released it in July. And so by the way, guys, I have very first guest. It's okay, just talk whatever you want to do. The first guest of the Not Also Classified podcast, Charlita. Well, back then, Huffman.
Yes.
But now you're Charlita Whitehead.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. How are you doing, Charlita?
I'm doing great. I'm doing good. Excited to be back, and it's so good to kind of catch up after such a strange year, kind of getting back in the swing of things and life. So it's nice to come back and say hi and kind of touch base. And it's an interesting, like when you said, it's been 4 years. I'm like, wow, has it been 4 years? It kind of forces you to, it's a nice opportunity to check in and think about all the things that have passed and changed in those 4 years. And I think we both had a lot of change in those 4 years, and like professionally and personally. And so it's it's nice to look back a little
and to kind of catch up too. So one of the when I was preparing for this episode, I'm like, how did we, I listened, we were talking about the YouTube channel, which, by the way, this is now going on to the YouTube channel, the 100th episode. But the only episode that I uploaded from the audio version of the podcast was your episode. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, geez, this is such a difference in how interviewing style. I was nervous. I recorded on well, you see me now record on this, but when we did the recording, I was recording like this. And then you never saw it because you were we did this over the phone. And I never thought about using Zoom. I never had a webcam like this. So I said, the easiest format of doing this is taking an audio mixer. I'm glad we're doing video now. So I used the audio mixer and I was talking through this, and then I attached through the back here a little connector to the phone. So I was using this and this to talk to you. And so this happened for the first few episodes. I was just talking like this, and I was in my my kitchen table. This is a different house, but in my old house,
you didn't even have like a separate space then.
Yeah, I didn't. Everything was on the kitchen dining room table. I think I described it. I was on I didn't have a proper mic stand. Look at this. I have a mic stand now and everything, and a headset.
All grown up.
I grew up to be a podcaster, and I used what did I use? I used a rice cooker box
I think I remember you saying
that, and I propped it up, and I will show for the YouTube the picture of that setup, and it's really ridiculous. If you really want to see it, I think it's on the Instagram profile, but it was just like this, and I didn't know how to do it, and I was just talking and listening and talking and listening, and I think I also had questions for you because I think we prepared for that episode with questions and stuff like that, and I had no idea how to interview, and I had no idea how to follow up with questions and stuff like that. And I mean, gosh, 4 years of doing it totally makes a difference, at least for me. To do this, and I think over the years it's gotten so much easier, and I seriously don't need a script anymore. Like just for today, like you asked me earlier, what are we going to talk about? I don't know.
I mean, that's what's so nice of what comes with the experience and just getting repetition in with something, even is both your technical stuff and setup is better, but even just being more comfortable and not, having that like frantic kind of energy. So no, I think it's cool. Not even that it was frantic. I enjoyed our first episode. So I thought it was good, but I definitely, it's nice to be able to look back. I'm sure you listen to some of your older episodes and like you said, oh wow, like you've really grown and like see so much like development there. I think that's it's exciting. It's nice to look back in life, and when you're in the middle of it, you forget you're progressing. And so to look back and see like, oh, okay, I am, it's not just stagnation here. I'm making changes and growing. So I think that's definitely been the case with Not Elsewhere Classified, and just seeing the community you're building and growing. It's really cool. So that's awesome.
I agree. The one thing that I think that came out of it is helping professionals realize their potential. And I think the exercise, it just becomes an exercise for professionals to like, when I asked them that first question, where did you come from and how did you get to where you are today?
Right.
They lay out everything they've done. And I think when they do it, I think what really, the one episode that really helped realize was my former boss, which I did, Sabita Ramnares. And she was kind of laying out her career. And the thing is that I was with her in most of her, in part of her career. And she said, like, I told her, I remember when you told me that you were aspiring to become an HIM director. And so after she left with me, she was an assistant director. She moved into an HIM director. And then we talked later. I mean, how many years later? Like so many years later.
Yeah.
She left in like 2009, and look, it's like almost 11 years later. And I told her, like, you remember that? And she's like, oh yeah, I remember setting a goal for myself to be an HIM director. And it happened to be that then she realized she achieved that goal. So it's like, sometimes you got to step back a little bit and kind of figure, kind of reflect. And, sometimes it's good to reflect on things instead of moving forward, and catch up with other professionals that, hey, what's been going on? Either it's been good, either it's been bad, whatever it may be, sometimes
but either way, there's something to catch up on. And
correct. And see, like, help, each other. It may not be mentoring. To me, it's always been like a therapy session for professionals,
And I forget, I'm blanking, and I'm not sure if it's a whole different term that she uses, but there's a term that's like co-mentoring, kind of, instead of, it's not necessarily that you're coming down from on high and giving so much wisdom to someone lower than, or seeking out a mentee. But I think what I found so much of the time, a lot of the great input and advice and even just support that I've gotten have been from people who are, on the similar levels. And I've definitely gotten tons of wisdom from people higher up, and even learned some things from people who were in more junior positions. But I think that my cohorts and people who are at, around my same level, I've really learned so much from just getting that support. And also looking around, you get in the workplace and realize, like, oh, I thought that I was the only one who was unclear here or unsure. And then you start to realize, like, oh no, a lot of folks aren't really certain about what's going on. And then it starts to feel like, okay, I guess we're all just figuring it out and doing our best, and like, trying to set ourselves up to, be able to have a successful, work day or situation. And I'm kind of in a transitionary place in my life, and really trying to reevaluate and get myself into a routine that's really going to foster like that growth. And it's, exciting, but also just nerve-wracking. So it's, but yeah, perspective is nice. And I think with all this change that's happened for everyone this last, having such a crazy year after COVID, and we're kind of, depending on where you are, we're coming out of that slightly, hopefully. But it's, I think, given a lot of people like a push to take some time and slow down, and forced us to sit down for a while. And I think a lot of people were able to reevaluate things and decide if they wanted to make changes. And so that's been interesting for sure, to see how everyone in your life, I don't know if you kind of observed that, or if I saw a lot of people doing different levels of change, this last several months or however long.
I think it's just like self-reflection, like, where are you at? Things are now like, when before COVID, we were just like, go, right? Moving forward. And then when everything is put to a halt, then you're kind of forced to like, okay, what do I do now?
Right.
I remember back in 2010, when my wife graduated nursing, she wanted to go take a trip to the Philippines. And when you go to the Philippines, or even like, let's say I went to the Bahamas, somewhere off, out of the country. And I know the Bahamas, I went there. It was very like laid back and slow. The same thing like the Philippines. I went there. We drove, we got to the airport. It took about, I don't know, 13 hours to get over there, and another 3-hour
flight.
Yeah, a 3-hour drive to get to the province. And the roads are for us it would take 30 minutes, but then a 30-minute drive around here would take about 2 to 3 hours, right? Because of the roads. And so everything is just, at a certain pace. So, for me coming in and working and doing all of this stuff, going to then slowing down to a certain pace, it makes you like, okay, like, what do I do now? If I can't do this, if I can't do that, what do I need to do? And you have to self-reflect. And so I remember sitting down and I'm like, okay, do I have to clean? No, we got somebody else to do that for you. Do you need you need to go get something? No, that's okay. We get somebody to do that. And I was just like, kind of scratching my head. I'm like, I feel in a way useless, how can I be of, I guess, help, be of service? And like, oh, no, you're okay. Be of service, not to others, but then now be of service to yourself. So I think what 2020 did is like, kind of like, okay, you've kind of took care of yourself. You maybe took care of others, but now kind of self-reflect. And I think that's what 2020 did for me. Kind of figure out, like, okay, I've done some things, I've done this podcast for so many years. Where can I take this, and kind of continue it forward? So speaking of kind of like transitions, this, we recorded this first episode with you of the Not Elsewhere Classified podcast back in 2007. Right?
I think so. Around then, right?
No, it was 2017.
I guess that's 4 years ago.
Yeah, wow. June 2017, and I released the episode in July.
Yeah,
I actually released the episode on my vacation in a hotel room. And I'll show a picture of that too. But at the time, I forgot, what were you doing in 2017? I think you were
I was an HIM coordinator at a hospital in the Central Florida and Oviedo Medical Center. I think that's where I was last. And I think I am 3 positions away. Oh, wow. So I've been moving, I guess that's echoing my first episode too. I feel like
that's fine. So like from that position that you were at in the first episode, kind of walk us through what happened in those transitional phases. And
sure.
Yeah.
So I was, I was working as a HIM coordinator at a small hospital in Central Florida. I think it's 67 beds or something. And they had just opened to become a full hospital. They initially were built as a freestanding emergency department, and then later on, expanded to be a full hospital. So I was there, and when we opened and got to help kind of, get everyone onboarded and help train up those processes and build those relationships, it was really a great experience. You don't get a lot of opportunities to kind of start at a brand new hospital like that. So that was really, it was really great. And I enjoyed it there. I decided I finally wanted to go back to school to finish my bachelor's, and I'd kind of been wanting to for a while, and then just the timing and working and it just was, scheduling wise, was tough. So I ended up transferring to another position. It was health information management technical support analyst. So working, and it was within the same company. So all of these have been transfers within. So at that time, it was a remote position. So just taking that, even just taking the commute out from work to there made the going back to school so much more doable then. And I transitioned to that role in 2018. And even then, I was working for Parallon at the time, and their Orange Park Health HIM Shared Services Center in the Orange Park area, they were already, I want to say, like 80-something% remote at that time.
Wow.
So a lot of remote workers, but and that includes some like coders and things like that, but also just a lot of other types of positions, revenue integrity and different like that were also remote. And by the time I transferred out of that position in 2020, they were 90+% remote. And then in this past year, the lease was coming up on the building, and with everything going on with COVID, almost everyone was home anyway. So they became the first shared service center within our company to go 100% remote. So like went whole hog and really committed, and they, you know, it, like a lot of companies all over, realizing it was kind of cost saving and things like that. So I got off track a little bit there, but it has been interesting to see how those things have been kind of unfolding over this time. But anyway, so I was working as a HIM technical support analyst, which was, I mean, technically it was in the IT department. It wasn't really, you know, I'm always saying about that job, like in IT, but I'm not like in IT, I'm not hacking the mainframe or anything like that. So it was a lot of kind of monitoring our reports and making sure records were flowing into the electronic health record correctly, and kind of repushing things. And if we were bring on new utilities or divesting or anything like that, working with to make sure all those systems were working correctly. And I really was able to use a lot of my working, you know, as a user with our different systems like that. A lot of people in those roles hadn't worked in, you know, had never been clinicians or even been, you know, in an AM department or a unit secretary or any kind of role where you're using our system as the person who is using it to either get information or information. So it was really valuable to have that information and that different perspective. And I think that's something that I've really relearn every time I've transferred or moved roles, is that one of the best things about it is it gives you just perspective and gives you more of an opportunity to look around and learn, and you can contribute and what you're going to learn from others around you, and you never know what is going to stick with you. Some things I don't see as much of an impact, and then years later, and I'm like, wow, that was actually, I'm so happy I learned that, or I got to see that person, that thing, and it either teaches you what to do or not to do, or maybe where you can adjust. And so I think that reflection is always really helpful. But I think when I was in that role as a technical support analyst and going back to school, so I was kind of working full-time student, it was definitely just busy, you know. And I think everyone has been there at some point in their lives when they just are burning the candle at both ends and finding extra wicks and putting those in the candle and burning those. So when I graduated from UCF and I got my bachelor's in health services administration, because my associate's is in health information technology, but I kind of wanted to broaden, I guess, my, you know, knowledge base instead of gone back and forth for a while. But I'm really happy with the program I chose, and I really enjoyed it, and think I learned a lot of information that has been was really helpful then and in my like roles later. So anyway, I graduated from UCF in December of 2019, and then I mean the whole time, really throughout my career, I've really been, for so long, I really wanted to be an HIM director. It's funny when you were talking about your previous boss and you said like she set that goal for herself, and then, you know, to look back on it when she attained it and she'd forgotten all about it kind of thing, or forgotten that was something she was actively working towards all that time. So when I was in school, for sure, I knew I wanted to be an HIM director. I never really had a ton of interest in coding, but I did find that I enjoyed parts of it. But it wasn't something I wanted to do long term. And then when I was working as an HIM coordinator, and really I was there by myself at the hospital a lot, we had kind of a satellite campus thing for a bit. So our HIM director really worked at another campus at a larger facility nearby. And I was really there kind of in our department alone. And so it really gave me a great chance to learn and grow and kind of, you know, understand how to operate things on my own. And I enjoyed it, but it also helped me to realize, oh, I don't really think I want to be an HIM director. Maybe there's something else, you know, that I want to do. And so I think that helped prompt me to both finally go back to school, which is something I'd been putting off forever, felt like I kept putting off forever, and also to kind of broaden my thoughts as far as what degree to go after. So after I graduated with my degree in health services administration, I actually applied for a manager in training position. They have these MIT roles, they call them, within our company. And they have a back office MIT, and they have an HIM MIT, and these different positions. And basically it's a salary position, and you kind of rotate around all these different departments and get to see billing, coding, and just how they all interact and what the workflow is of the company. And so I thought, for me, that sounded amazing. I'm like, yes, an opportunity to just see how it all works, because I think I'm learning more and more. The way my brain works is I want to just see everything I like to see everything laid out. It's hard for me to focus in on one thing, especially if I don't have an idea of the big picture, kind of. So
yes,
that was really appealing to me, the idea that you really get to rotate through different departments and see how different managers, or maybe different HIM directors, just how different people like to set up their workflow or their work. There's a lot of value in just seeing what works for people and doesn't. And I was interviewing, I was really adamant. I said, I really want to do the back office role. And they said, yeah, we're looking at your resume, and we think you'd be a really great fit for the HIM manager and training role. And I thought, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's what I'm interested in. I really have more of an operations focused now. That's kind of where more of my interests are. Even data analytics, like, it just had broadened, but I really was sure that I didn't really want to do that. And then, we're talking and said, well, you could do this for a couple of years, and then that would be a great, launching pad onto something else. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, I guess, sure, and I kind of thought about it. And then, really felt like it was an opportunity I didn't want to pass up. And it remembered, well, I did really want to do this before. So, am I crazy turning this down now? And so I kind of hemmed and hawed, and then eventually ended up accepting that position. And I transferred from my role and moved to Tallahassee to become the HIM director, and also facility privacy official and records coordinator at a hospital there. And I was remote before that for like a year and a half. And then I moved to Tallahassee in April of 2020, which is right as everyone else, which is right as everyone else was transitioning, to going remote or getting out of the workplace. I was both leaving my remote job to go work in a hospital every day. So it was really, it was an interesting year. And the first time I'd been to Tallahassee really was for my interview, I think. And then the second time, because of the timing of when I moved, I rented the townhouse I was renting there without even seeing it in person. I mean, I kind of sent a deposit in the mail and kind of hoped that and prayed that it wasn't,
Oh my goodness.
I looked them up. I said, it seems legitimate, so I guess I'm going to send this money. But it worked out. But the second time I was in Tallahassee was when I was moving in. So it was really a lot of kind of stepping out on faith that year. And it was just, challenging to definitely be in a large facility with a lot of kind of complicated things going on. And everyone was really adjusting and adjusting to the change, and staffing issues. So much was going on in the facilities with COVID, between wanting to make sure that we're taking care of our patients and protecting our patients, but then also wanting to make sure that our clinical staff was still being supported, especially people who were by the bedside, especially those in the emergency department and ICU, where they were really seeing, so many really high, like very sick patients, and really needed to feel safe and supported. So it was really challenging to be in the facility, but also I was reminded every day that, I'm in my office most of the time by myself. I'm not, having to put, my health at risk in the same way that so many of the clinical care providers were. So it was an interesting kind of balance there. And it really, it ended up being another opportunity to get some perspective and realize, I guess, that you got to trust yourself too. So I think that was kind of a lot of this year was kind of remembering, and really the last 2 or 3 years was kind of remembering that, or learning to listen to myself, I think, and not, and it's a lot of it is also like trusting that I felt like, oh, I don't know if I can pass up this opportunity. It's such a great opportunity, but also remembering that if I just follow what's interesting to me and what I like and what I'm passionate about and what I think I'm good at, that opportunities will present themselves also, they don't necessarily come and fall on your feet, but if you're out there, and working and growing, that these things will happen, and you kind of find your path and then work, bit by bit. So it really helped to remind me of that again. So I hope I don't have to keep learning that lesson, but that's life. If you're not learning and growing, you're not living, I guess. But so it was really an interesting year and kind of a challenging year professionally, and I just really learned so much about both in like professionally just working in that role, but then also, personally just trying to find a way to find some balance and realizing, oh, I'm not really taking care of myself. Kind of like you said, when you're on vacation, you kind of are forced to sit there and look around and realize, you want to find things to do or things, and you just had to sit there and kind of sit with yourself. And I think I almost had kind of the opposite year where I was running around. So, busy and frantic with work stuff and trying to figure out this new role. And just would have a few moments where I'm looking back and thinking, yeah, I need to kind of take a minute and look and see, is this really a fit? Am I doing this just because I feel like I have to, because I took this position and now I'm going to grind it out, even if it's really not what I want to be doing or not where I see myself long term, excuse me. So it was an interesting kind of, year. I started at Capitol in April of 2020, and I transferred out of my role there in April of 2021. So it was, it was really a really packed year there, but I transitioned into a role that's kind of related. In our company, we're kind of under the same umbrella, information protection and security, and we kind of all report up to our ethics and compliance officer on the corporate level. So
nice.
The privacy team and also the information lifecycle management team, which I was a part, was one of the hats that I wore in that role as well. So it really, my current role, I'm working as a zone facility information security official. It's a mouthful. It's kind of a newer role. I think a lot of other companies have a similar title, it's starting to become more common, and it's usually a business information security officer, something around those, officer official. So a lot of it is focused on, it's a mixed bag, and it definitely does encompass a lot of what was in my role previously as an HIM director, especially the facility privacy officer portion of it, with HIPAA and high tech and all of the new things that are changing and the new requirements for to make sure that patients' information is being protected, but that also that they are getting access to their records, in the way that they want, which is, I think a long time coming. And, I think we could get a lot further, but I think it's great to see that there's legislation that's pushing that forward and starting to move that forward. But currently a lot of my role is also doing a lot of education around that type of protection and privacy and security. So some of it is working with our physical security team, especially around things like our security cameras and making sure that all of those things are where they need to be and properly positioned, but then also working closely with our FPO and our HIMDs and IT directors and HR, things like that, to make sure that we're doing orientations and getting everyone trained up properly. And within our company, I think it's the same for a lot of companies and probably a lot of healthcare companies, especially the phishing and ransomware and all of that stuff has been something that we've been talking about for years at work, but even more so this last, several months or couple of years, especially with all of these new cyber attacks. And so it's something that we've always been really robust about trying to educate about, and it's just been that much more. So we do a lot of phishing testing and education about that, and they send little phishing emails and try to get you to click, but everyone says you're tricking me, but it's also really trying to make sure that people understand how easy it is to put your whole facility at risk. And there was actually an attack in Central Florida area. I think it was in the news that UF Health Shands had recently bought a hospital in the Villages, and they went to downtime procedures they were documenting on paper for a month.
Wow.
And and I think they were pretty tight-lipped about it, so we're not exactly sure if it was a ransomware or if it was phishing or exactly how it happened, but things, you never know when something like that is going to happen. And it's, that set saying, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So whoever we don't need everyone to click it in the company. We just need one person to look at something and not really pay much attention and click the wrong thing or open an attachment. And then we're putting our patients at risk. And you're also putting your own information at risk as an employee. All our social security numbers and all of our banking information is all within that system too. So there's really, it's really been interesting to kind of get into that education piece in a different aspect a little bit more, or expand it a bit more. But also a large part of my new role is doing a lot of working with vendors to make sure that their systems and processes and whatever products or services that they're trying to provide to the hospital are safe and secure, and are either, that they're either going to be doing the things that they need to do to make sure that they're patching things timely, or that that their servers are secure, things like that. So I've been learning a ton, and I definitely, sometimes will look up from what I'm reading and think, I guess I am in cybersecurity now. So, okay, I'm reading and learning about things. And so it's been really interesting. And I think it's been another opportunity to kind of have some perspective and look back and remember, as things are coming up or as we're having other issues, the other people on my team have really an IT background, and they worked in help desks or our data center and things like that. And they have definitely a skill set and knowledge base that is useful, but they had never worked in a hospital or they don't have that understanding of, scheduling and kind of people's different pulls on their time. It's just a different dynamic. It's a different beast, really, working in a facility versus being in a remote position.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting to have that perspective, and then also just to be able to bring knowledge and another perspective from my previous roles, and what it's like for people who are working there, but then also just some of that other information. So it's been a kind of a continuation, I feel like, of my career, but I'm planning on staying put for a while in this one. I've really been enjoying the change of pace and have been learning a ton, and it feels like it's really like it's valuable, and I am happy to be doing something where I do continue to feel like I'm contributing in a way that's at least protecting us and our patients, because it really is a very real risk. And we're seeing that more and more with all of the, pipelines and meat industries and all of the different people who are getting attacked and ransomware. So it's been an interesting learning opportunity for sure. And I'm kind of excited to continue down that path, and I don't know, look into maybe another credential in that realm, but I'm not sure yet. I'm going to take the beat. I'm actually kind of prepping. I'm about to prep to sit for the RHIA. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because you qualify because of even though you don't have the bachelor's in HIM.
Yeah.
I think they have something said that if you have a bachelor's, regardless, and some HIT background or education or experience, you can sit for the RHIA.
Exactly. I just completely blanked on the name of it, but it's if you had an RHIT within a certain time period, it might have been 2012 or something along those lines. Yeah. And a bachelor's in any field, then you can sit for the RHIA. But I think this year is the end of the road. So I am about to buckle down. I am,
it expires soon, right? It's not like an indefinite thing.
It's December 2021. So I'm going to, take it, see how it goes.
Yeah,
but I'm excited about it. I think
you'll do fine.
I think between work experience and prep stuff, and
you'll do fine.
It's funny because even though I didn't get my bachelor's in health information management or health informatics, I think between having my associates in that field, and I still did get health services administration bachelor's degree, which had a lot of similar, similar coursework and a lot of overlapping classes. But then that on top of the work experience, I think between that and doing some prep, I feel okay about it. But I definitely, it's interesting to get back in that mindset of, the studying and pulling out the guidebooks. But it's been, so it's been interesting kind of trying to adjust and change gears there and get back into that swing of things. Yeah.
I remember when you were on the podcast the first time, we were talking about, remember the RHIT, the big hoopla about, the RHIT disappearing and everybody was going crazy. And we did like a follow-up episode on that to kind of dispel that myth. And it seems like, the conversation is still there up until now. Like I still see like, oh,
Really?
Is the RHIT going to be dispelled? I'm like, really? We're still having this conversation?
I know, we're still talking about that.
Yeah. And then I think the one of the changes as a result of that conversation, the HIM reimagined or something like that, was what you're talking about. Is now they want more people they want to elevate, I guess, the people in the HIM profession to RHIAs, or was it the RHIT plus specialty? I don't even know what's happening now
kind of
nowadays.
Doing some specializing in different areas, and I mean, I think, and I've had a work experience that is a little different. I know a lot of my like previous classmates and coworkers who have an HIM specific either work history or education are really kind of sticking to those HIM roles. I think for me, so much of it is I want to read a job description and, what are the things I'm going to do? And is that something I'm interested in? And I don't think that HIM is as small as we make it. And I think that, I think AHIMA is definitely trying to make that more robust. And I think we talked about this before too, that, they ceded a lot of ground to nursing or IT, to both. Really, those are the two fields that end up in a lot of positions that HIM professionals are as competent, if not more so in some roles and situations to take on those positions. And I think especially now, I've worked as a trauma registrar, there was some coding involved, and there was but a lot of it's data analysis and data entry and statistics kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed that position, but it's one of the positions that people often want to hire an RN for whatever reason. And they have to learn all those extra things that we already, have that knowledge base. And then working as a technical support analyst, there's a lot of, obviously people with an IT background in that role, but that specific role was helping to support our EHRs. And so having had the experience of working with them on the front end and also having a good understanding of, what that workflow should look like there, it provides a lot of information there and being able to troubleshoot. And even in my previous role as an FPO, we're kind of, and as an HIM director, seeing things where, this document's not flowing over correctly. And the tech or whomever built it is using medical record number and account number interchangeably. And they've maybe created this, great system that feeds it into your medical record, but instead of feeding it into the correct account number, it only pulls the medical record number. So it might, if someone is admitted and they have a pre-registered account for a surgery a month from now, and they have like a tele strip or something that's getting sent to their medical record, instead of it going to the current visit, it's just going to go to the very first account. And so that's something that maybe if you weren't thinking about, a medical record number and an account number are different, or they're not, two in the same, it wouldn't occur to them. And now it's kind of that could be a bigger issue to fix and a lot more trouble. And I think it's about making sure that you have like, robust diversity on your teams and just different experiences and backgrounds and knowledge bases. And I think even in my role now, I'm seeing again that there's so many IT people throughout our company that are in the role that I'm in that have a really specific IT background. And I think it's been really valuable to have another mindset and another kind of set of experiences to bring, to think like, maybe we ought to tell those people too, or maybe we need to rope people in. I think it's a lot easier to tell the correct people up front than to try and go back retroactively and reassess and resort your program and process. So I think it's just been more just relearning and remembering and really reinforcing that for me is to like, I'm not so concerned with that HIM being in the specific title, but I still very much feel like every job I've had has been within that field. I think that my education and work experience in more traditional roles has informed my positions in other roles. And who's to say you never make your way back to a more traditional HIM role. But I think like you're saying, it's great to see that AHIMA is like elevating our, different credentials and things like that. And I really would love to see them continue to push into those other industries and roles where we really have given a lot to other, kind of departments and other service lines where they have a lot of knowledge, but we do too. And I just want to see HIM professionals spread their wings and, take over the world.
I think only, a human can only do so much. They set the guidelines, but I think it's more important that the professionals kind of promote the role out there.
Yeah.
And one thing that you had mentioned that I've kind of noticed as you talked for
rambling
almost the past.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Cut it.
No. This needs to be. Remember the first episode was like under an hour. I mean, since then I've gone like 2.5 hours. I mean, really, this guy has really gone long for him. So don't worry about the time because I'm not recording on an SD card no more. I'm recording directly on the computer now. So I got time.
Memory.
So one of the things that I wanted to bring out is that for people that are graduating, you guys have to realize, I had it here, but it's on the other side, and I'm about to do a video on the YouTube channel. It's like people don't realize the power of the education that you received,
right?
And I think when students graduate HIT or even HIM, they sometimes think they have to use everything all at once, and that's not the case. But when you're out there in the field, you have I'm gonna flip it around. I just can't hold on.
Well, now I'm intrigued. I gotta see what are we.
See? So I listed like most of the classes there. You can't see it, but you see what I did. I kind of listed all the classes there,
right?
And it's like
you get a lot of
you're not going to use it all. You're not going to use it all at once, but when you're in the role, you're going to take one class and kind of leverage it on your experience or whatever you're doing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what HIM is very good at, is that the fact that the course that the classes that we had received is not really specific to one thing. I mean, we got a medical records course. That's for medical records. That's for what you were just talking about,
right?
Where people are putting information from the same patient into a different account, and now you're dealing with patient merging,
right?
That's a big huge nobody knows about that, right?
Oh wow,
they don't know that problem. It's like duplicate accounts, finding, you have you have one patient but two patients' names, or one patient with like a different date of birth. There was a mistake, and it's all on registration, right? So, and the thing is that when registration makes the mistake, who has to fix it? Medical records, HIM.
Well,
So
when almost any department makes the mistake, we end up fixing it on the back. I mean, especially when you're tied to the revenue cycle, we end up having to kind of contest with things that got missed on the front end. That's
So you see, it's like it's like they don't realize, hospitals don't realize that there is a person who is like the person with the many hats that puts it all together. And like yourself, like for yourself, I think you're kind of like exploring different areas. You did HIM, you did privacy, you're now doing security. And so you're not necessarily doing coding that I have listed back there. But I
have in my past. In one of my jobs, I used
you did. Was it trauma registrar with the coding? Yeah. Which, by the way, my sister is doing for the same company. Like it? Up in Jacksonville.
It's
for,
a cool job.
Which hospital is it? Memorial.
Oh, that's in our system.
Yes, in Memorial, and she's been doing it for quite some time. I think she started out in Kendall. She lived.
That's where I was.
Yeah, your name popped up.
Wait, what's your sister's name?
Tatiana.
Okay, I don't know her.
I think you already had left. I don't know. I don't know the names, but I think you already had left. And I think when I kind of pulled back that first episode, I'm like, wait, Charlita was a trauma registrar.
Yeah.
And then so I think your name popped up in there as like somebody who used to work there. Right. And then after that, then my sister decided to move up to Jacksonville. And now she works as a trauma registrar there. You mentioned the everybody going remote. She was talking to me about it.
Yeah.
They were thinking about it, and then when COVID hit, boom,
it got escalated. I mean,
everybody go home.
Phrase that was being used a lot, because that ended up actually switching the process and putting a fourth hat on the HIMDs, where what we sent all of our, we mostly an electronic system, but there is paper that's on the, produced on the floors. And so those things get sent down to HIM, and we used to have a courier that would pick it up, drive it to Orange Park, and scan it all in. And since they're going 100% remote, that process was being brought back into the HIM departments. And so the HIM directors are all adding like a document imaging director hat on now as well. So yeah, I mean, I think that's such a great example of the, like you were saying, just because we got all of this information and education, all these roles, you're not necessarily going to apply that all in, you know, every position or even in every kind of stage of your career. Like there's, you know, management classes and things that you get early on, and you maybe won't be having any direct reports initially or for a while when you're just starting out your career. But even having that information informs how you know, maybe perceive what your boss is going to do. And then once you do get to that role, you have all that information to pull on, and it gives you a good base to have some understanding. And I think it's been so cool to see, you know, starting to see more people kind of branch out a little bit. I mean, I think that coding's amazing. Coders don't get enough respect, and you know, same for CDI and HIM departments and those traditional roles, but there are so many roles. And I know a lot of people are, you know, frustrated at how challenging it can be to get your foot in the door in an HIM department or in a coding department if you want to do those things. But, you know, a lot of times the foot in the door is just through, you know, another role, another department, and you might be surprised at how much you learn. And like you said, you really do have to advocate for yourself and really have to, you know, I think HIM is part of it, and helping to kind of like show employers, like, look at the education that our people have, and really pushing how robust the credential is. But also as an, you know, as a candidate or, you know, employee, you really need to advocate for yourself. And
that's right.
I know early on I had, you know, specific classes in my resume that I took, especially before I had more work experience, just to highlight, you know, look at these things that we learned. We definitely have a pretty well-rounded education, even in the associate's degree programs. You're still taking, you know, maybe a healthcare law class and a management class and pharmacology and a lot of, and that, you know, there's really a broad kind of knowledge base there. So it's there's a lot of opportunities out there, but you also have to be willing to kind of think out of the box a little bit. And like I said, for me, a lot of it has been really kind of focusing in on a job description and looking at what is it that the job description says, and not being so worried about the title. I stopped searching for titles really in a for a job search or in a posting. Just especially if you know that that's all you want to do, but you don't always know that that's all you want to do until you maybe see something else and you read through it and say, oh, wow, that's interesting. And I didn't realize that I'd be a great fit for that. But I think even now, as I've working for such a large company and kind of transferring from different departments to departments, and I'm technically a corporate employee now on the HCA side instead of the Parallon side, but there's a lot of shared whatnot there between the companies. But it's interesting seeing I feel like I'm still finding new departments and seeing new positions that I didn't know existed, and, you know, learning about new things. And there's so many positions that exist now that didn't exist, you know, maybe even when I graduated with my associate's degree, not that, 10 or however many years ago. So just, I think always being willing to at least look into something, and if you don't like it, you can get out. But it's also a nice way to kind of just, you know, broaden your pool and give yourself some more opportunities to learn and grow and just see where it will take you. But it can definitely be challenging to figure out what to do or what you want to be interested in, and sometimes you just have to try.
It's like what was I gonna say? It's you mentioned the broad education, and as you move into different roles, you are specializing in that certain area. And even though you mentioned, even though you didn't want it in the first place, I always ask myself the question, what's the worst that can happen? You know,
right?
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? You're getting a job. Maybe you've gotten more pay. Maybe it's not the job that you want, but what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
It's what you do in that role that counts. Like, you could make it to where you want it to be. And if you don't really like it I see, like, after, I don't know, like, a year is to me the minimum. At least, I mean, because like by the time you reach a year, I think like you're just like learning. Yeah, you're just learning.
Yeah.
The very basics. And then when you move into year 2, you're kind of like, okay, learning to kind of be more into a proficiency, more expertise into that role. And
more proficient. That's
Develop you. I think by year 1, I think you kind of were trying to get into it is developing your own work system.
Right.
Like how
just
can
getting your hands around it.
Yeah, like what is my own system to do my job in the most proficient manner? And that to me, it only takes, for me, it's a year. Yeah. Because that happened to me with the HIM director position. I got into a year, I got into a good rhythm. I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then after that, I'm like, I don't need this anymore.
Like I did it and it's not for me. And that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have, like you said, what's the worst that can happen? You learned that about yourself. You know, you knew that, and then you were able to, you had more information and you can make a different decision. And that's, you know, I'm someone who's really self-critical, and but a lot of that is also I look at things a lot and kind of maybe sometimes overthink, but really think through things. And so even if I'm looking back on a past decision that I don't feel so great about, I'm still able to take something from that and learn. And I think, you know, if you can look back on an experience that you aren't so proud of, or didn't really do how you felt you would do, or even you did great but you didn't like it, that's just more information that you can use to, you know, move yourself further into something that you do like, and you try again and you know, adjust. And that's kind of what so much of building a career is. And it's not uncommon for people to jump around a lot more than they used to. I think I'm doing more jumping than I thought. I mean, I definitely plan to stay in my previous role for more than the year, but I think, like you're saying, it was my boss at that position said, you know, it's really, you know, it's a couple of years before you're comfortable in your position. And I think that's true. And I think for me though, early on, I think within the first couple of months, I was like, this is, I think, not a fit. But I was also like, but I think I can get there, you know, and
or you can make it fit.
Well, I thought I could make it, well, I guess it depends on what you mean by fit, but I definitely felt
make
like
it work for you.
Capable, but I think that I, you know, kind of felt like I was drowning a bit between kind of staffing stuff and COVID stuff. And we were really constricted in a lot of areas. And then it being a new role, and kind of my training was adjusted a lot. So instead of, there was no one on person, I was kind of doing a lot of this.
But you said it was a manager in training.
No. No. Oh my gosh, I didn't even finish. Oh wow, I'm so sorry. So I got off. So I'm interviewing. Oh wow. So let's start
at the manager in training. You were placed in HIM.
I got lost. Now we're gonna have to. Wow.
That's okay.
And that's my journey. I'm
that's all right.
also.
medicalcodinggeek.com